So obviously when we hire someone, at that time we add compensation data to them. And also when there's any job changes, and there could also be when you do transfers, or you could do ad hoc compensation change. And then there's the annual compensation event also. So there's a lot of VPs on compensation. We'll go through them today. And then I will also go through the eligibility rules as well, similar to the ones that we created last time. So some of them we saw when we were looking at compensation grades or grade profiles. So let me show you on the job profile. When we go to a particular job profile, on this screen, the grade profile, the grade is not seen. You actually have to click on Edit, so you can see all of the fields on this screen. So you could have a grade assigned to the job profile, and if you do, then when you hire someone into that job profile, the grade will show up as well. The grade will be assigned, but the job grade, the compensation grade, and the grade profile are not required fields. And here, these grades have to be, they have to exist for us to select. You cannot create a new grade from here. Sometimes on some pages, there'll be a create grade option or create eligibility rule option, like a create a new one, and then you can navigate to the new creation screen directly from here. So this is where the compensation grade goes, grade profile goes, and if we had an eligibility rule, we could also select them over here. But right now, there's none. Remember, we have eligibility rules that are used everywhere, so it's very important to learn how to create them. So I'm gonna create the eligibility rule once again, just for good practice. Create compensation rule. And this time I'm going to copy the rule from an existing one. So I know there's already some rules that are like this. So I'll search one using any keyword. Okay, so here's one that says country is Japan. So the conditions that we had for that rule will fall over here, and then we could modify this to add the additional rule as well. So I'm going to copy that exact field and put it over here. All right, so we're going to continue creating the eligibility rule so we could use it in one of our compensation plans. So I'm going to copy this field, primary address from work or home or location country. And I'm going to do a right click on it. I'm just going to say copy text. And then I'm going to bring it over here and just paste it. It didn't paste. Let me do that again. Copy text. There you go. And then, the one the item that's selected, if you hit your spacebar, you do that. Basically, I was showing that, sometimes we have complex rules, or you might have a different condition, so you could always copy it from here and then paste over here. But then at least that gives you the proper tag, and then you could modify that field or modify that condition. So here we're just making a simple condition. I'll just edit it in here. I could do another job profile, like and job profile, but I'll do that in right after I show you what I was gonna show where to see the eligibility list. So you give it a name, you could put some comments in here, and then we copied it from this rule, and I'm gonna hit OK. Let's see what this here is. Okay, so that error means that whatever I have entered here, either I don't have permissions to, or this value is not eligible for this field, which I think it's because I was, this error doesn't make sense, so I'm gonna cancel this and do the same thing over. I think it was because I had that second line and then I deleted parts of it. I'm just going to go back to the create eligibility rules screen again. Yeah, it seems like some kind of security permissions issue that's preventing it, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a different field to create that. Yeah, for some reason, this is not a legitimate error. It's just some kind of security issue that's popping up. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't put that under the. You could copy them and paste them into the Workday community site, and yeah, if you're, hopefully there'll be, other people who have experienced it and created, have some kind of answer for that. Here, so I think the issue was that since I'm in the compensation rule, you see how in parentheses it says compensation. So I have to select the fields that are in the compensation module. So there's multiple, like when we search for them, multiple fields show up. But when we're creating a compensation rule, choose the one that has the word compensation around it. So there's like job family. If I type job family, there will be multiple fields named job family and group. And here we go. So there's job family by itself, but there will be job family with parentheses compensation. There's job family. Well, in this field, it depends on the actual field. So I'm using work address country. So in this one, I have to use a separate line. But when we're creating, if it was not a compensation rule, then I could use in list instead of using for the relational operator, that shows up is based on the source field. So that field I had earlier was any in the list, but that was not a compensation field, so I couldn't use that. So if we need to use, depending on the type of field it is, whether we have to list them separately, or we could say we could choose a relational operator that says any in the list. But for this field, I don't have that choice. But since I want it for Japan and India, I'm just going to go ahead and create another row because I want to show rolling out the plan to the folks who are in this plan. So let me go ahead and copy that over. So once the rule is created, you go to Actions, and if you go to Compensation and Eligibility menu right here, you can see all the employees or workers who are eligible for this, like who match the criteria in this one. So if I click here, it should list every worker who's in India or Japan if the rule was set up correctly. Okay. So worker count is 0, so it didn't match anybody. So that's why you always want to come back over here and check your filter. Okay, so good. We got 26 workers. And the reason I'm gonna assign this rule to allowance plan, and then I'm gonna roll that plan to the folks. Okay. So here I'm gonna go to this person's record, and I'll show you where the plans are assigned. Any existing plan. So we'll see him. Let's go down to compensation. This total reward page, companies could use this one to have the compensation data in graphical form, but the rules or the plans that are assigned, if you want to see what was assigned, and it'll be down here, just scroll down to the compensation tab, and here's where all of the plans that this employee is in, they're assigned over here. And here we see that there's an allowance plan, family Japan, there's a 0 amount. So similarly, I'm going to create an allowance plan. Say the company has started a new plan, and only the folks in Japan and India are going to be eligible for it, and says we need to roll that out. So that would be your requirement. Hey, create a plan and roll it to employees in India and Japan. So fairly easy to do. I'll show this as an example first. So in this plan, we have an effective date, we have a plan name, then a description, saying that, hey, if you have a spouse, you're going to get 10,000 yen. If you have a child, you're going to get 5,000. The compensation element we enter is allowance, currency, frequency, and then there's an eligibility rule. Just like it says here, country is equal to Japan. And then the allowance profiles. So this says, based on this rule, you're going to get this particular amount. So if you have profiles assigned over here, then based on this profile, and when you assign the plan to the employee, this amount will automatically be shown. So in this person, we saw that 0 amount is shown, is because he did not meet these criteria. So he got the default amount, which was 0. Okay. If we were to, change his, like if we were to add a spouse or a child for him, and then he could be updated with the additional profile. Or when we're rolling it out, it checks to see if the eligibility matches or not. So we're going to create our own allowance plan. Allowance are typically amount-based. Actually, I have not seen a percent-based allowance. Well, it can happen. Like in India, we have 12. There's a base salary, and then 12% of the 12% retirement plan or part of the pension plan. So the option is there, and we'll call this one. We're going to keep the default amount to 0. But yeah, so it's typically 0. But you could say, hey, by default, everyone's going to get a certain amount. And then if they meet any other criteria, they'll get a different amount. If I was to put a amount here, let's just say like 500, and I have to give a currency. But since it's for India and Japan, it doesn't make sense, right, to have a default currency, because you want to make sure that your criteria down here, the profile, matches to the employee. If this was just for Japan, then you could say a default amount, because then you could specify the currency in euros. But for multiple countries, it would be kind of poor practice to do that. So let me change that back to 0. Okay. So here's the eligibility rule that I created. Okay. So before we add any profiles, I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to roll this plan out to everybody just to show how we roll out plans. So I'm going to do this for allowance, but the plan rollout process is the same for all the plans, whether it's a merit plan or bonus or stock. So I'm going to click OK. And we could either go to Actions, and then we say Compensation Plan Rollout, or from the top menu, you could say Rollout. So in this case, I'm going to just go from Actions, Compensation Plan, and Rollout Plan to Employees. And we just have to give a process name, select the eligibility criteria, and then we can roll it out. So allowance plan rollout. And you would choose an appropriate reason. And compensation is already defaulted in because that's the plan we decided to roll this out from. And then we could do by individual employees, or we could do it based on rule. Okay. So we're going to use my rule that we created. And we click OK. So it says the process has completed, but you always want to check if you're successful or not. So the menu for that is View, Rollout, View Compensation Plan Rollout Process. And here I have to find the one that I rolled out. So it was this one. I'm going to click OK. So I see that this plan got successfully rolled out to 18 people. And then it's a 0 here. If there was a number over here, that would mean that those employees either had the plan already or there was some other condition preventing them, but you need to pay attention to this number, and also do an audit. Because when we looked at the eligibility for this, I think it was different than 18. So, in the real world, we have to, our goal was to assign this to everybody, but this 18, I don't think it matches the number we saw, for the total population that was eligible for this rule. So let me take a look at that again. Okay, so we have 26 people in India and Japan, and the plan got rolled out to 18 people. This means those folks had some conditions in their profile that prevented this plan from rolling out. So this happens in the real world, and you have to find what that reason is. One reason could be that the employee may be on leave, and they're not in active status, they're on leave status. So in that case, and the plan will not get assigned. And another reason is, when I'm looking at the eligibility and see who, this data is as of now. When I show that 26 people are active in India, Japan at this time, but my effective date is January 1st. So, that could also explain that maybe a lot of people got hired after January 1st. So on January 1st, there was only 18 people. And based on the type of plan, there could also be a transaction that's pending in that employee's profile, and that pending transaction could conflict with the rollout of the plan. So in order to do that, you have to ask the HR partner to complete that transaction or cancel it so that you could assign that plan manually. So in this case, we got most of the people, we were able to assign it using rollout. You do an audit, you find out, okay, is this fine, or there was other people that needs to be assigned to? Then you look in their profile to see why not, and then if it's only a few people, then you could assign the plan manually. And if it was a lot, then you run this process again using the rollout functionality. So let's see if this plan got assigned or who it got assigned to by clicking on these 18 folks. So here's a list of employees that this plan got assigned to. So let's go back to the same person and see where it shows up again. So once again, I go down to compensation, and then I go to the compensation tab. Okay, so here I see that the plan got assigned, but since we only had a default amount, and I had not created any profiles, so they got a 0 amount by default. I'm going to go ahead and remove this plan, and then assign profiles, and then roll it out again. And then in order to navigate back to my plan, I could also type view plan at the top, or I could just click on the plan here. So let's assume we're going to give 500 yen if someone's in Japan. So I need to find an existing rule that will give me that everybody in Japan. So I'm going to search for it. Okay, so we already had one existing. And then I'll add another line for our second rule. I'm just going to put, let's see, 500. In the real world, the amounts will be given to you from the business, or the amount might be given to you in USD currency, and then you have to convert it into whatever the local currency is. Okay, so we're going to do 5,000, and let me see if there's a rule that already exists that allows me to find everybody who's in India. Okay, so we're going to test that when we roll this plan out, everybody in India is going to get 5,000 INR, and then in Japan they should get 500. So let me click OK. And before I roll the plan out, I want to check that do these rules really work? So let me check the eligibility criteria on this one. Okay, so for India, it's giving me 14. And Japan, I'm getting 12. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and roll out again. And I'm just going to put a number in the beginning so my process shows up at the top so it's easy to find. Okay, so we're rolling this out. It completed. Let's view it. So notice it did not roll out to anybody. And not receiving the plan, there's 18 people. So these are the people who got the plan assigned before, and they're not going to get the plan assigned again. So now this tells me that, hey, this was not successful. We have to identify these people, find out, what's going on. And then obviously, since we know what's going on is these people already had the plan. So there's the other menus. We need to remove that plan first before we assign, any changes to it. So this time I'm going to navigate from the search bar. I'm going to say remove plan. And because I'm navigating from the search bar, I have to enter the compensation plan that I want to remove in this case. If I type allowance, there's going to be a lot of allowance plans. I could, I think mine had my initials in the front. Yep, there we go. Okay, so the process complete. So I'm going to view the removal process. So view, remove, plan, process. And I'm going to select my process. Okay. So it says employees removing compensation plan 18. So I was successful in removing it from those 18 folks. And I'm going to go directly to my plan from here. And I can actually navigate to rollout from here as well. So now I'm going to roll out the plan. Okay, it completed really fast. So I'm kind of worried, like, did I really get assigned? Usually it takes a little bit longer. So I'm going to check that first. So view rollout. And I have to go to my process that I just ran. Okay, so it does say that, hey, got assigned to 18 people. Let me select somebody. So let me go to the compensation tab. Okay. Okay, so we were successful. We do see that as of 1/1/2020, this plan got assigned with 5,000 INR. And if we look at someone from Japan, they should have got the Japan amount. So this person looks like they're from Japan. And exactly, we see that for the tuition, this person's got 500. Okay. So this is an example of a company starting a new plan and rolling it out. Now, just because the plan is assigned over here, unless they're using Workday payroll, with the rules set up that pick up any allowances as well, this amount is not going to go anywhere. So usually, if they're using ADP or third party, there must be some kind of report that has the allowance plan listed and the amount, and then you give it to the payroll provider, and then they will, pay this amount. But the key functionality was rolling out the plan and removing the plan and then creating the profiles on the plan. I want to show you guys the stock plan and bonus plan where we also use frequency. And let's set that up. So a company may have a lot of plans, but you could type compensation plan and to see a good list of all the active and all inactive ones. So just go to compensation plans by itself and select the effective date. So we see under salary plans, we have 4 plans, all the different categories. Here's the allowance plans. And unit-based allowance plans, merit plans, bonus, commission, stock. And there's another special kind that's used a lot is called one-time payment plan. So I'm going to see that. Okay. So when you have like a sign-on bonus or a referral bonus, like someone's going to, or a spot bonus, like someone does a great job, they're usually set up as one-time payment plans. So it's one of the more common ones, and it's also a common one that there's a lot of updates to it. So it helps to be familiar with a one-time payment plan. So I'm going to just go to the signing bonus one. So signing bonus is not going to have a frequency, right? Because this is part of the one-time payment plan. So when we're setting this up, the frequency, field is not there. This is more of an ad hoc bonus type. I have seen it used regularly as well for like weekend shift. So if there's a company that's tracking weekend shift and they want to pay extra for someone who's working weekends, and they work weekend, they may work every other week, or they may do a weekend shift once a week. So in that case, and it's not like something that's fixed, but it is kind of on a regular basis, then even though you get paid every month, it's still set up as a one-time plan because it could be random. In 1 month, in some months, you may work one weekend, and so at other times, your employees may work that weekend shift twice. This just allows it to be a little bit more ad hoc and more flexibility, so that yes, the manager could submit a one-time payment plan if their employee works, and it gives you the flexibility that if there's a lot of changes to it or some months they don't work, So setting it up as a one-time payment plan allows you to pay that person on an ad hoc basis. And so besides showing, on the payroll side, you would also give them data from a report that has the plan name and the plan amount, and typically who's approved by. So all of these, once you submit it, there's some kind of approval process behind it based on the company's requirements. So let's look at a signing bonus. It does have a default amount in USD. That makes sense if most of the employees are in the US. But if they're in these other countries, they will get the amount that's listed here. And if they're not in these countries, you could still assign the plan to them because we see that the plan eligibility, there's no restrictions on it. So in the one that I created, I had said, hey, that plan is only for India and Japan. So I had selected that as the eligibility rule. If you leave it blank, you could assign that plan to anyone, regardless of there's a profile that exists or not. So if the profile does not exist, you could, at the time of the transaction for that employee, you could give them a certain amount. And if the profile does exist, then by default, it'll give them this, but you could always change it at the time of actually giving them the bonus transaction. So keep in mind, these are the profiles guidelines. This does not mandate that the person will get this until the person is actually assigned to be paid in a particular transaction. So I'm going to take someone from India and I'm going to try to give them a signing bonus. I don't see any kind of restrictions on it, so it should work. It will come to it really depends on the company. If you have, more than likely it will come to the HRIT or the HRIS folks because it's actually setting up the compensation plan. They could be trained to do it themselves, but they may not know how to create the eligibility rules. There was another one who had gone through the advanced compensation training. So it really depends on the culture of the company and the kind of training they have. And then, of course, could have been assigned to, and then you do an audit, just do a Excel VLOOKUP or some type of audit. It really depends if the business or the person has, the training for it or the time for it. Yeah, even in this, my current role, which is more of a director role on the HR system space, I still have to roll this out because, my HR folks, they're not savvy enough to do this. So it really depends on the company. And even my analyst, hasn't gone through that training, so I end up rolling these out. So in this case, we were looking at the sign-on bonus plan. It did not have any profile on it with a default amount. So I'm going to just go to one of my eligible workers, and I'm going to assign, I'm going to give a spot or a sign-on bonus to one of the folks in India. So remember from our first lecture, anything that's a hyperlink or it has the related actions icon, you could take actions directly from there. So I could go from here and then I could go to compensation And then I could either do a compensation change or assign the plan from here. Or, I could look up their profile and do a payment from there. So here, request one-time payment plan, or I could go from the profile and then actions and compensation, and then request one-time payment. We do an effective date. Here, there's a list of reasons. So I'm going to show you where these reasons are maintained in a little bit. But we do maintain these reasons. So I'm going to select signing bonus. Employee visibility date, this really comes into play for like spot bonuses or things that you want to not show the employee until this particular date. And then under here, add one-time payment. This is where I would select the plan. So the default amount showed up, which was in USD, and this could cause data entry issues. And that's why it's always good to have the profiles for each country, or you could have profiles based on the type of employee. So it could be a job profile and country-based eligibility rule. So you could say, hey, anybody in India, but they're in management, they should get a certain amount, or they're in IT, they will get a certain amount. So you definitely want to have the profile. So like here, if I didn't pay attention to this and I go ahead and submit it, so I'm paying an employee in India, but I'm paying him in USD, and I'm paying him. So it will cause like a data entry issue. So what real world, I have to convert this to INR and then choose the, our INR currency. Let's give it a really big number. Okay. And then we could submit it, and it will go through, whatever that business process approval flow is. So next, I went to the controller. It's probably based on because the amount was so large, and if there was any rules built into that process, it will go to the next step. Okay, so I'm gonna continue on. We're still discussing compensation and compensation plans. So before we get into compensation transactions, I do want to go over the most common compensation plans that every company uses is the merit plan. So if they have an annual merit, which just means companies usually pick one time during the year where they will evaluate the employee's performance, and then based on their performance, there might be a merit increase. Okay. So in order to run that plan for the employees, there's something called a merit plan, and then there's eligibility for that plan as well. So let me navigate to the comp plans and then to the merit plan. So merit plan is like we saw the default frequency, right? This is going to be typically it's going to be once a year, like most companies do it once a year. One-time payment plan could be is an ad hoc. So if your employee does a great job and you want to allow your managers to pay them as soon as they do a great job. So here they did a great job this week, you could do an ad hoc one-time payment plan. Next week they do another great job. Or on an as-needed basis. So one-time payment plans, you could do a request payment on them as on an ad hoc basis, whenever someone meets those requirements for it. So an example would be like that sign-on bonus, right? So sign-on bonus is only when you first get hired and you were promised that, hey, if you stay here at the minimum 6 months, and at the end of the 6 months, you're going to get a sign-on bonus. Another example that I've seen is a referral bonus. If you refer another employee, so whenever you do referral and then you meet the criteria for the payment, at that time, it could be multiple times in the month, or it could be multiple times in the year, or once a year, or once every couple of years. So one-time payment plan is that one time you can make that payment on an ad hoc basis. So things that, well, let me just go back and give you more examples of the one-time payment plans that are set up. So, I mean, obviously not every company is going to have this list, but here, someone has set up Christmas bonus, employee referral bonus, or relocation. When someone relocates, there might be a need to pay them. So that's set up as a relocation bonus, a retention bonus, severance bonus, spot bonus. So usually the common ones are spot bonus, signing bonus, severance, and employee referral. And I've also seen relocation bonuses a lot. Retention bonus is also there. If you're trying to retain someone, someone's trying to leave, or you tell them that, hey, we'll give you an extra payment if you stay for another 30 days, or if you stay for another 90 days. So that's where the retention bonus comes into play. Merit plans, so this is for that particular employee or the group of employees who qualifies for, for these plans. Merit plan, on the other hand, this gets rolled out, by the company to a very large group of employees. So in this example, we see a merit plan that's separate for the hourly employees and is separate for salaried employees. And so this would be for everybody in the whole company, because I don't see any other, well, yes, everybody who's on salary and not fixed term. So it's rolled out to all of the employees at one time. And so I'm going to click on this plan and see, and we're going to check out the eligibility rule for it. So here we have 3% default in USD, and I'm going to look at the eligibility rule. So it says salaried, not fixed term. Let me see what that really means. So it just says that this condition filter is give me everybody who's on a salaried compensation group and they're not on a fixed term contract. But this doesn't really tell us what is that condition. So I'm going to dig deeper into this. It just says, right now it just says salary compensation group is equal to yes, but what is that condition? So I could go dig deeper. So the criteria that make up this rule is the job profile is salaried, so that's great to have. And location employee type is freelance apprentice. So this is another rule, but you actually have to dig deeper to actually see the details of this one. And this one says location is Stuttgart. So first they made a rule that says if the country is France and an employee is an apprentice. So we needed that rule. And then you took that rule and you added that to the overall rule. So for the overall rule, we said, hey, we want to find everybody who's salaried except if they're in France and they're in the apprentice profile. And then we also don't want to include anybody who's in Stuttgart who are on this collective agreement. So you notice is you make a condition rule using additional, condition rules to get one overriding rule. So I'm going to see who qualifies for this. So I'm going to go to Actions. I'm going to see View Eligible Workers. So there's 434 of them. Okay, so on this merit plan, next down here we see merit plan events. So these are compensation events that have already occurred in the past or they're in progress. So it says compensation review 2020 compensation review. It has an effective date and when it was initiated and when it was completed and the current status. So this is useful to know, like when the last merit has happened and who was actually part of that. This plan, it also has a waiting period. So this waiting period is already defined 3 months from hire date. So when we roll this out, if we had just hired someone, and when we roll it out, that person is not gonna get this assigned to in their profile. And then other fields, just starting from the top, allow target override is yes, because the target by default is 3%, and we could change that. Reference currency is US, frequency is annual, compensation matrix, it does use one. We're not going to get into that, but that's usually something like if the rating is, if you got an exceptional rating, then you're eligible for maybe a 10% increase. Or if you got a low rating, that matrix is usually a table, you're eligible for a lower increase. So that guideline is kept in a matrix. And that's actually covered in the advanced class. But you're welcome to look into your tenant and then click on it, see, what it defines. And it has a time proration rule. So that means, we see that the target is 3%, but this assumes that the person is going to be here. They were here for all of the 12 months of the year. But by having a proration rule, and depending on what that proration rule is, it prorates based on, the time since hire date. So if you're only here you're here for 5 months, and 3 months, you're not eligible for. So your increase is only going to be based on those 2 months salary and a 3% increase. So this plan will automatically calculate what that defined amount will be. And then there's a rounding rule. And you have process eligibility. It says include active employees assigned during the process period, and then include active employees in waiting period as well. And that's selected as a no. So what this means is that when we're going to launch the merit process, I know this is actually covered in the advanced class, but just to go over it a little bit, the HR team will tell us that, hey, they will tell us who is eligible for it. So we'll have to update the eligibility rules. And then they'll also tell us the default target. And in the real world, you will have, I don't see examples over here, but there will be profiles that says, hey, in the US, the amount is going to be 3%. In the UK, the amount might be 3.5%. In India, it might be 5%. So typically, it would be a good practice to actually have the profiles based on country, so that when you roll this out, the plan gets rolled out accordingly. And then when you run a report, it will list all of the US employees with 3%, and then it will automatically multiply that 3% against their annual salary to tell us what the target bonus, the target merit amount is going to be, or the new the salary. And what this field means, include active employee assigned to the plan during the process period. So when we launch this, there is a process period, right? Because this is an annual plan, and this might go from January to December. It might go from June, the beginning of June to end of June for the next period. So if you have any employees that you assign this plan to in that period, you want to include them in the plan. It's an option. Sometimes someone may not qualify based on the eligibility rules, but you could manually assign them. And then if you do manually assign them for that during that process period, in order to include them, you want to make sure that this is yes. So merit plan is, obviously very common. Bonus plans are common as well. So there might be an engineering bonus. So let's just go ahead and create one. Bonuses are well, they could be both, but something that's like an annual bonus or semi-annual bonus, they're likely to be on a percent-based plan. Okay, so we're just creating a sample bonus plan, and compensation elements, base pay, compensation basis, it's going to be total base pay. Allow target overrides, yes. Hide target, companies do request to hide the target or show the target. So I'll show you where this makes sense. So we have a target of, say, 3%. When we roll this plan out to the employees, it's going to say, 3% under their compensation profile. Let me go to that employee view worker. So when the plan gets rolled out and under plan assignments, it will say, the name of the plan, and then assignment would be 3%. And depending on the visibility or the security, this area might be visible to the employee, but it'll definitely be visible to the this employee's management. And if HR is afraid that, hey, they don't want them to automatically assume that they're eligible for 3%, or because they see this 15% over here, management should not assume that this person is going to get 15%. So some HR departments are very sensitive. They'll say, we don't want to show this target. Like we don't want to show any default targets, so you could hide it. So if you have this hide target, then that default target will not show up there. Okay, so currency, it could be annual, monthly, or quarterly. Let's assume this is going to be annual. So at this point, the plan, I'm just creating it, so it's going to be active and it's in use. And if I mark it inactive, then, okay, this plan is now inactive, so you cannot roll this out. But if it is rolled out to someone, it's not going to automatically remove it from their profile. But this does, tell the user that this is an inactive plan. So you definitely need, since we're creating a bonus plan, it should make sense to put some kind of eligibility rule on it. So when you roll it out, it gets rolled out to a particular population, but you don't have to do it here. You could do it at the time of rollout. On the rollout screen, you could also put an eligibility rule at that screen. So it would roll out only to those people. Let me see what kind of eligibility rules are available. Oh, there's just so many. So management level, fine. So I'll put management level 5 here. Actually, I'm just thinking like just to give a more real life example, since it's special bonus for management. I mean, it would not be so restricted just based on a particular level. It might be everybody in management, or so just think this is for, as an example, we're picking up management level 5. But you could definitely have more than one rule in here as well. There might be other levels that qualify for this plan. And there's level 8, executive level. So, based on whatever the requirements are. In some companies, it's just based on, there could be one bonus plan for the whole company, regardless of their profile, or it could be based on engineering folks could have a separate plan, and corporate folks could have a separate plan. So it really depends on what the requirements are, and then you have to design the eligibility based on those requirements. So in order to learn how to do those eligibility right, is go into your tenant, and that has so many examples of eligibility rules. So just see how they're set up. This is a good example of management, but not sales, right? So see how that is set up. It's probably set up on job family. So do explore how all these eligibility rules are set up, because they are used a lot in the real world. And so this is a great way to see what's already out there. Now, are bonus profiles required? No, they're not required. And if they're not required, when you roll this plan out, everybody will just get the default target. But if you want to say management level, will get their target could be 6%, and let me bring that management level. We have not covered compensation basis. This is compensation basis is the formula of how your salary is calculated. But I think I'll cover that tomorrow, like what is a compensation and the different types of compensation bases. But in summary, compensation basis is the formula for how your salary is calculated, or how your employee's salary is calculated, and all of the parts that go along with it. Like your salary could be just your base salary, or your salary could be your base salary plus allowance plus bonus. So in this case, I chose total base pay. So that means this percentage is going to be multiplied to just the base pay. And you could have other compensation bases that that could have said, hey, if someone is in, like, base pay applies to the US, but it may not apply to India, because in India we have base pay plus provident fund. So you need to create a separate compensation basis that includes base pay plus any allowance, and then the target ones should actually multiply against the combination of both of those, not just the base pay. And then I'm going to create another profile that says 3% if you're a team member, because the world is not fair. Team members only get 7%. Okay. Management, this one. And then I have to choose the base pay, total base pay. Here, proration rules. It means if someone, if you want to prorate based on how long they were here at the company during this period of payment, so you could prorate them, and then Workday has delivered proration rules. So you click on all, and these are some of the existing ones. So you could prorate based on base pay changes during the period. So if someone got a salary increase, like say in September, so the system automatically multiplies the percentage to their base pay amount that they had up to September, and then if they had a different amount after September, then it will multiply that percentage against that different amount, and it will prorate based on that. Time since hire. So if they only started in March and your time frame for this bonus is from January through December, you don't want to assume 12 months of salary and then multiply the percentage against that. You want to do 9 months. So then you need to choose that. So time since hire, that's a fairly common one. So I would go ahead and choose that. There's obviously rounding rules, round up, round down, round up to the nearest one, etc. So depending on the company's rules, usually you round up to the nearest, so that so employees don't complain that they lost like 25 cents or 50 cents. So, but it really depends on the company. Some companies don't care, some companies do. But sometimes it makes sense to just round up to the nearest one. Okay, so here we created a bonus plan, and it's that simple. But you get paid for knowing this. So while it's simple to set up, there's a lot of things that go into setting up that eligibility rule, and not everyone could do that. So you put this on your resume, you make a little video, from your tenant. Obviously, you want to hide the URL, and showing that to demonstrate that you created the rule, you created the plan as part of your profile. It will definitely get some attention. Okay, so click OK. So we have created the the special bonus for management level 5 and team members who are in 7 to 8. So the next step would be to roll this out to the employees and then launch it as part of a bonus process or a merit process. The plan that would be used in that instance. You said that at the start of the process, there will be a certain bonus budget, right?
Right.
So how does the company come up with that budget? So the way that budget comes up is using this target number. So here we said for US, well, the default target for everybody who's eligible for this plan is going to be 3%. What you do is, so this means you take this 3%, multiply that against the salary of all the employees, and then you'll get the 3% of everybody, right? So that's going to be your budget.
Right.
And then you roll this plan out to everybody. That second part where how that budget gets trickled down to each organization, that's when we actually launch the merit process, or we launch the annual merit. We could launch it here. It actually doesn't take too much. Here we're using a scorecard, and a plan modifier. There is a matrix you could use for bonus plans as well. Let me pull an existing one, but just for the class, we're talking about, in order to launch an annual merit or bonus plan process, right? The starting point is you have to have that bonus plan and the eligibility defined. So here we created one for management level 5 and team members. If you're doing for the whole company, let's look at there might be a bonus plan that's already exists for the whole company. So, and that might have a compensation matrix assigned to it as well. So let me go to comp plans. So, okay, so this is bonus for management, bonus for team member. This is the one that we just created. This one, I'm trying to find one that's for like a really large group of population. So I guess this one, bonus global support. Let's check the details on this one. Yes. So you could put up bonus plan with performance factors or the compensation matrix. So these things we actually cover in the advanced compensation class. But yeah, you do have a bonus plan with matrices and scorecards as well. I want to show where to maintain the reasons we saw for the changes. So remember when we were on the one-time payment and there were certain reasons that were listed there, or when we do a compensation request, here when we do actions and compensation and request compensation change, we always have to give a reason, right? So if you click in here, here's the list of reasons when you're going to compensate someone or you're going to request a. Usually the HR partner will do a request compensation, but we on the Workday side, we set up the business process behind it and the reasons behind it. So these are the reasons. So request compensation change, adjustment, and then under adjustment, there's ad hoc, there's correction, there's cost of living, etc. So a lot of these transactions, they have reasons behind it. And these reasons are listed under this lookup field, which I'm going to go to right now. It's under maintain event categories and reasons. So if you're asked to update the reason or inactivate a reason, you go here, maintain event categories and reasons. So you choose the type of event. So here we're dealing with compensation change. And so we go down to request compensation. Does someone see it here? Yeah, request compensation. So under that process, we have incentive category and adjustment. And these are the reasons that we saw already. So under adjustment, there was ad hoc, job change, and so on. Here's the cost of living. There's also conversion if you're converting an employee or contractor to employee. And other categories as well. So if you need to add another reason to it, so under incentive, for example, or under adjustment, you just click on the plus, and you could say an adjustment could be relocation. I think we already have a reason that says cost of living, but if that was not there and you need to create a new one, it will be done here, relocation. And then there's a checkbox says manager reason. So if this is checked, that means this reason is available to the manager when he or she is initiating the transaction. If it's not checked, then it's only available to HR partners or people on the HR side. That reason would only be visible on the HR side. And then if you no longer want to use a particular reason, you could mark it inactive, like that. So this is where the reasons are maintained, and you could update them. Also, another thing that changes a lot is the one-time payment reasons. So companies do, they kind of review it every couple of years and update their reasons. So in that case, you go to one-time payment. And here's all the reasons that we saw under the one-time payment business process. And this is where you could add the reason. So notice here, signing bonus, this is just the reason to select in that first part. And then the actual signing bonus plan was actually set up as a one-time payment plan. That's just the reason. So this is where you maintain. And then obviously there's other reasons that you could update from here. So when you're changing job, there's a list of reasons for that as well. That needs to be updated all the time. So they're here. Company might decide, hey, they no longer want to have a particular reason, or they do what's called a cleanup project of all the reasons. Maybe there's too many reasons and they want to consolidate. So you would come to this screen and you make your changes. So we do get involved in like job change reasons cleanup project as well.